If you click on this video, chances are you're probably struggling with the current 3.7 Abyss. And I don't blame you. It has definitely been
It's not over.
experience. I'm Link80, and in today's video I'll be sharing everything you need to know to make your life easier in the current Abyss lineup. Alright, I'll start by going through what teams, characters, and elements you'd like to use for the first and then the second half. Afterwards, I'll share some gameplay tips that'll help you deal with the chambers themselves. For the first half, we have Chamber 1, starting with 2 waves of 3 Whopper Flowers and then 2 waves of 3 Primal Constructs, which for convenience sake, I'll be calling Doritos from now on. Grouping is very important here, so if you have Sucrose, Venti, or especially Kazuha, they go a long way. There are alternatives if you don't have hard grouping, and I'll be touching on them later in the gameplay tips section. Having Electro plus Dendro here will give you a safety net for the Doritos invisibility, but if you're going for 3 stars, you want them dead before they go invisible anyways. The Cryo Pyro Whopper Flowers do resist their own elements, so Cryo and Pyro damage can struggle a little bit with them, but it's not a big deal since they aren't that tanky. A strong enough Cryo or Pyro DPS can still push through. All in all, any team with enough AoE, CC, and damage can do a good job in this chamber. So that extends to a lot of possibilities like freeze teams, taser teams, aggravate teams, etc. Chamber 2 is the easiest one, with a single Terror Shroom. Having Electro here helps the DPS go faster due to triggering its activated state, with Dendro being a small plus to trigger it faster. It is worth noting though that its Dendro resistance is higher than the rest, so a team that relies too much on Dendro damage might take a bit longer here. Chamber 3 is the hardest one in the first half, with 2 waves of 1 Hydro and 1 Dendro Consecrated Beasts. Having Dendro or Hydro application can help you break their energy blocks faster, but isn't necessary. They do have much higher resistance to their own element though, so teams that rely too much on Dendro or Hydro DPS will struggle. Otherwise, it's all about survivability, strong AoE DPS, and Kazuha grouping if you have him. Now, looking at the 3 chambers together, we can see that Quicken teams, especially aggravate ones, bring a lot to this half as a whole. Taser and free teams also shine here. However, any team with a strong enough DPS, survivability, and if possible grouping can do a good job. It's not as element locked as the second half. For teams and roles that work especially well here, I would mention Kazuha as the MVP, making grouping in chambers 1 and 3 a lot easier while also bringing some good DPS. Electro DPSs, with a highlight on Beto that synergizes really well with chambers 1 and 3. Dendro healers and shielders, Venti, and Sucrose. Moving on to the second half, we have the Great Shield Wars. Chamber 1's second half is arguably the worst part of this Abyss, with Chamber 3's first half being a close contender. And you'll probably want to focus on a team that can get stars in Chambers 2 and 3 first, before coming back and tackling this one with a specific team. In here, we have 2 Abyss Mages, Cryo and Hydro, and then 3 Heralds, 1 Hydro and 2 Cryo. The Heralds attack a lot and freeze a lot, on top of having heavy armor after their shields are up. Simply surviving through this might prove to be a challenge, so having a strong shielder or a healer plus shielder or a strong healer is relevant here. Having good pyro application goes a long way here to deal with the cryo shields, while either Cryo or Dendro can make quick work of the Hydro shields. Electro is also able to damage both shields, albeit less in Pyro and Dendro Cryo, along with Geo. Chamber 2 has a single Thunder manifestation, and is the easier of the 3. It goes without saying, but having Electro as your main source of damage will be a problem here, which is part of what makes it hard to use Electro in Chambers 1 and 3. You also want to avoid teams that rely too much on Melt and Vaporize damage, as well as units that rely too much on the Blizzard Strayer effect, since you won't be able to proc any of those due to the manifestation's permanent Electro infusion. Save these things, any kind of strong DPS should do the trick, and Dendro has a bonus of being able to trigger Quicken Spread all the time. Chamber 3 has a new Inquitus Baptist. Unlike the overworld one, the shield elements on this one are fixed, as noticeable by its name. And instead of starting the fight with the funny elemental crystals, it goes straight into the shields. He goes Cryo Shield, Hydro Shield, Pyro Shield, always in this order, and is vulnerable the longest after his Pyro Shield is down. Having good Pyro, Dendro or Cryo, and Hydro replication here makes a big difference, as you'll see him more with the shield up than without one during this fight. Then again, Electro and Geo are alternatives that can do some damage to his shields, and even Claymore hits can do some damage to them too, though don't expect it to be too fast. Looking at the second half, we're rather element locked. When going for Chamber 3, having Pyro plus Dendro or Cryo plus Hydro is very important, leaving only one flex slot. When going specifically for Chamber 1, you only need Pyro and Dendro or Cryo, with Electro being more viable too. Some notable comps and characters for this half would be Nahida as the MVP destroying those Hydro shields and also the Thunder manifestation, national variants, especially ones with Dendro or Cryo in the last slot, Virgin teams, Chongli, Thoma, Dendro healers or shielders, and strong Pyro, Cryo or Hydro appliers or DPSs. Aye! Theory session is over. Let's get on the field! Now, if you enjoyed the video so far, consider smashing that subscribe button. It's free, it supports the channel, it puts a smile on my face. But most importantly, it helps me gauge how much time and effort I can keep investing into these videos. Cause I'll tell you, it does take a good amount of those. Okay, hate doing that.
Oh, but you gotta pay the bills.
With that out of the way, let's get right into the gameplay tips. But first, I'll be leaving a card with my Abyss runs on the top right if you want to see different compositions and how I did those runs myself. Chamber 1, first half. Tip 1, grouping the flowers. Right after starting the fight, you can run back to the edge of the arena in order to lure the Whopper flowers together. Staying there for the second wave usually works well too, especially if you have a bow user to lure them in faster. Tip 2, wind is strong. Sucrose, Venti, or Kaza go a long way in pulling these enemies together, so use them if you have them. Tip 3, positioning is also strong. If you don't have the means to force group the Doritos, go for the leftmost one first, looking from this direction. That one is ranged while the other two are melee, so this helps bring them together, and it works for both waves. Second half. Tip 1, take a deep breath. Tip 2, round up the mages. Run back a little after starting the fight to lure the mage together. Tip 3, drive their backs to the wall. As soon as he spawns, attack the Hydro Herald from this angle in order to push him towards the wall. The two other Cryo ones will almost always dash into you with this attack. Luring the Herald to the wall might make things a little more dangerous for you, but can also make it easier to stack and kill them faster. They like to backdash a lot, so if you can keep their backs towards the wall, that can help. Tip 4, stay alert. Try to always keep an eye on all of them to see what they're doing, and make use of your burst iframes to survive and avoid getting frozen. Tip 5, paint the field. Skills that keep doing constant elemental damage after being cast, like Chongli Pillars or Kazuha's Burst, can help a lot since they keep doing their job even when you're frozen or trying to survive. Chamber 2, first half. Tip 1, activated state. Apply as much Electro as possible, and Dendro if you have it, to trigger its activated mode ASAP. Just make sure to avoid getting hit by the upcoming attack as it hurts. It can do 3 different activated attacks. A bunch of homey funny spores, which you can mostly avoid by sticking close to it, 4 strong headbutts in place, this is the best one, or charging through the arena towards you twice, which is the worst one, it takes the longest. Once it finishes the activated attack, it will fall down to the floor helpless. That's when all of its resistance go down by 25% as well, and that's when you ideally want to burst it down. Tip 2, about Pyro. It's worth noting that inflicting Pyro on it will lower its Fury bar, making it harder to cause its activated state. Tip 3, preparing for hell. This is the easiest chamber, so if possible try to finish it with all your characters' bursts charged up for chamber 3. Second half. Tip 1, hug the bat. Stick as close as possible to the manifestation at all times, as this seems to make its AI less annoying with the attack it uses. Specifically when it does this wind up animation, stay as close to it as possible and maybe try to circle around it a bit with a dash, so it doesn't do the version that makes it spin all the way to the next continent. Tip 2, it returns home. Be aware that when it gets close to the arena's edges, it will usually teleport back after the move it was using, so try to avoid using area-based skills or bursts when it's too far from the center. Tip 3, reactive adjustment. Be mindful of how the reactions will be happening due to its permanent electro infusion. You might want to adjust your team's rotation a bit to work around it. Tip 4, preparing for winter. Just like with the first half, it is the easiest chamber, so try to have all your bursts up by the end of it. And finally, chamber 3, first half. Tip 1. Be sure your anger management mats are up to date. Tip 2. Positioning is very strong. Prioritize staying close to the crocodile, as it has a couple range moves, while the fanged one will tend to come to you faster. Like in chamber 1, luring them to the wall makes things more dangerous, but also makes it easier to keep them together. Keep adapting to the crocodile's movements, since it moves all over the f***ing place. Also, try to not let them squish you into the wall. Stay sideways to it if possible. Tip 3. Break those blocks. The most important tip. Whenever they use these attacks, and then for the crocodile, their energy blocks will appear, so immediately prioritize finding them and breaking them with elemental applications. Breaking each block takes 1 application of its own element, Dendro or Hydro in this case, or 5 applications of other elements. Be mindful of what fast elemental applications you have in your party. This causes them to lose 15% of their HP, it disables their buffed state, and leaves them helpless for a while with greatly reduced resistances. This makes a huge difference. Second half. Tip 1. The Great Shield Wars. His shield order is always Cryo, Hydro, and Pyro. Then it repeats. Plan your rotation and cooldowns to take each shield down ASAP. You really don't want to be locked into one of them for too long. He will be shieldless for the longest after you break the Pyro shield, so make sure you have your sustained DPS stuff ready for that. You can try feeding some faster burst DPS things in between the other shields, just make sure to save the longer things for after the Pyro shield. Alright, that's basically it. I hope this video managed to bring you some more insight into the current abyss, and that it helps you get as many stars as possible in this rotation. Good luck and do your best! Also, by the way, if you'd like to directly support what I do, my Ko-fi link is in the description below. You can donate there. From this video onward, all supporters' names will be shown at the end of each long format video. If you can't, that's totally fine. A like and subscribe also go a long way. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next stream. Bye bye!